Hi, and thank you for tuning in to a new episode about the Japanese SDF uniforms and unique airsoft. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the Type 89 assault rifle in Japan and the K2 assault rifle from the Republic of South Korea. Before we go any further, please hit the bell notification button, subscribe to this channel, share this with your friends and family, and what do you think about the K2 assault rifle and the Type 89 itself after this video? So, please leave in the comment section down below. Without further ado, let's start. In this video I'm going to talk about that there are some similarities between the K2 assault rifle and the Type 89 assault weapon in design. So first we're going to talk about the K2 assault rifle from the Republic of South Korea. 1980s, South Korea is still using the expensive model that imported from the United States, the M16A1. But it was still way too expensive for their budget to giving to the old military branches of the military. So they decided to go a look around the world and to try to make their own manufacturing weapon. And they looked at a few features that they were really interested in. The gas operating system from the AK-47, the bolt system from the M16 and the spring mechanism from the AR-18. Around 1984 the first few production of prototype versions were assembled, tested it in the field, and they decided to go with the K1 and the K2 assault rifle. But the difference between those two, the K1 and the K2, is that the K1 is supposed to be a submachine gun version with a collapsible folding stock receiver and a short barrel. So it is much more due for the border guard security and more good for close quarters combat. K2 assault rifle supposed to have a long barrel and a folding stock, just like the AR-18 version. So they put the gas system from the AK-47 together with the bolt from the M16A1 and the system from the AR-18. And they make the K2 assault rifle and the K1. It's one of the best assault rifles developed by an Asian country, but unfortunately not many people know about the K2 assault rifle. Even it has some features like the Galil assault rifle from the Israel itself. But this weapon has some features that some weapons did not have, and that's a folding mechanism, because the spring mechanism is pushed into the gas receiver itself. And that makes it far more easy for paratroopers, border guards and mechanized infantry units. The K2 is still in service today, from 1984 to all the way to this year from 2020. But that begs also the question, why does South Korea still use almost 35-year-old design and not looking for a new weapon to replace their standard assault weapon? And this is because it is cheap to manufacture for them, it is a reliable system, the geographic location is also a good reason why the South Korean forces decided to stay with the K2 assault rifle. Also, the manufacturing is much more cheaper than introducing a new assault weapon, and it is also much more reliable than the M16A1. When you put the K2 disassembly procedures, it's far more quicker to access compared to an M16. When a good soldier have been trained with the K2, they can disassemble with their eyes closed a little bit faster than an M16 version. Even the M16 is also K2 has some more features that is a little bit more reliable compared to the M16. The K2 does not use a gas tube system compared to the M16 and M16 series and the M4 family carbine versions. The gas tube is go all the way back to the bolt mechanism and push the bolt system back, but more fouling comes into the weapon itself. And in time, when so much dirt comes into the bolt system itself, you have to clean it again. Compared to the K2 assault rifle, it used the gas system bolt from the AK-47, so there will be less fouling into the action and has then more firepower in long terms compared to the M4 version. South Korean government and high command decided to upgrade their assault weapon. They decided to give a grenade launcher for some soldiers, and they're using the grenade launcher from the M16 version. They also decided to upgrade their folding stock and giving some real attachment, and that was called the K2C1 version. But this is only given so far to the special forces and the units. They were highly trained and motivated to defend the country. It does not mean that the whole army will eventually have the new K2C1 version with an N4 buttstock, but can still folding in, and also real system attachment, so you can use more gadget on it compared to the old version K2 that is still in service. So let's talk about then the Japanese version. The Type 89 is developed in 1989, 5 years later compared to the K2. The Type 64 used also Shostro gas piston. I think they has looked at the FNFL version that Western European countries were using at the time. And also decided, when they looked at the AR-18 version, even it has some good advancement, they decided to make their own version, a little bit better version compared to the AR-18, a Shostro gas piston, and also the spring receiver was to stay in the system itself, so that you can also making a folding weapon. Eventually in 1989 they have developed 2 assault weapons from the Type 89. One with a standard stock mechanism without a folding attachment, will be given to normal infantry units. Stock will be given to paratrooper units, mechanized infantry units, train crewmen, and also given by reconnaissance units on motorbikes. From 1989 all the way in 2020, the Japanese did not upgrade their standard assault weapon. They give some new features, such like a rail system above for scope to mount, or a handguard underneath. But many people say that the Type 89 is an outdated system and not a reliable system at all. But that is also the question, why do people not look? In Great Britain they chose to go with the L85 pop-up design. Even that weapon has many features problems before the Iraq war in 2003. The system was broken, magazines were falling out, it was a very unreliable system and many soldiers died because of their weapon and not through enemy fire. But the L85 is still in service, but with a very new upgrade, a little bit shorter and a little bit more reliable compared to the first version. But we have also to look to the M16A1, also known as the AR-15. The AR-15 didn't have a push button on the right side to push the bolt forward if it has a disfire or if it has malfunction. And it did also have some problems in the field during the Vietnam. Eventually the problems were all solved. And that is my question, why do people underappreciate the Type 89? And I have to think that the Type 89 doesn't have any military intervention except for Iraq war, and no other country is using the Type 89 assault weapon. But that's a good reason. The Japanese government decided to input weapons sales ban. So the Japanese government decided not to sell any weaponry to a foreign country. So the Japanese decided to make their own version of weapons and other weapons in their arsenal for themselves, and not for a foreign country. That's why also the Type 64 has never seen any other countries adopting this weapon. That does not mean that also the Type 64 was a bad weapon. Of course it had some mechanical breakdowns, but every weapon in design has some flaws. It does not say it is the best weapon in history, but still, the Type 64 still served to this day in the Japanese self-defense force, but more for security forces and also rearguard units for logistics, for example. The Type 89 is in the same way. Even has a few features that I think it can't be upgraded. The railguard system could also be adjusted using a folding stock version, only to use an M4 for example stock. Then you have a very good assault rifle. Here I have a few examples from assault weapon from the Type 89 upgrade. I haven't made a full video about the Type 89's upgrade choices. If the Japanese government decide to upgrade their Type 89 assault weapon instead to go with a new assault weapon. But we also have to go to look geographic to the location why the Japanese and the South Korean forces decide to go with their 2 weapons. South Korea is still bordered with North Korea and they are still officially at war. And they needed a cheap weapon they could produce themselves and very quicker compared to the M16. And they get to go with the K2 and K1 assault rifles. South Korea is one of the countries still using draft restriction. So around 500,000–600,000 men and women are in service at the moment. and they had it, and they needed a weapon cheaply as possible but still reliable as possible to make. So the K2 came in and is still using ever since. The geographic location from Japan is far more different. Even they have around 250,000 men and women in service. All the forces, the whole Japanese armed forces system is based on voluntarily. They have no draft system in their army, but the most concentration for the Japanese self-defense force is the Maritime Self-Defense Force. Even it has only less 50,000 men and women in service, but because the Type 89 was only developed for self-defense force purposes. The AR-18 itself was not 100% reliable, but it used the same platform, but the platform that was used was adopted by many other countries. And I see that the Type 89 is a very good assault weapon. When a Japanese soldier is training with the Type 89, always have to remember to close the dust cover, and if the mud comes in to the action, it is still a reliable system. If it was an unreliable system, the Japanese wouldn't go with the Type 89 system. Even the Japanese self-defense force, or the ground self-defense force, it has 150,000 men and women in service. I see that the Type 89 and the K2 is very good weapons for the armed forces from South Korea and Japan itself. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and please let me know in the comment section down below what you think about the K2 assault rifle and the Type 89. Please do, I really like to know about your opinion about it. I wish you a happy new year and hope that everyone will do better in 2021 when the coronavirus is over. There will be the last video of this year, so I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.